Hello, my friends out there. It's time for Boomer Time. Nancy Cogar here. Boy, I am always glad you're here, but I'm glad you're here today. Today, we are going to be talking about some stories that we've dug up, or my producer, Nay Paris, has dug up, and they are interesting, questionable, but I think they will provide some good insight to us all, right? People are complicated. People make bad decisions, and they cause complexities, or we can learn from them. So that's what we're going to do today. I want to remind you that I have been nominated for the best of the best local podcast, and I am so thrilled that you have nominated me. That means so much to me that we build this community here. Now, I need you to vote. So if you go to my website, there will be a link where you can vote. And we're doing that through the end of the month. So if you can do that, take a couple minutes and figure that out. I would sure appreciate it. Also, just wanted to give you a little plug for my book, Boomer Time Blueprint, still doing well. And I am planning some events coming up that I'm excited to tell you about, where we can share some of the information from that and answer your questions. Books available on Amazon.com. So we have some scenarios that I thought were interesting and gave me some thoughts, or what lawyers call these fact patterns. But I'll start out with one, okay? And let me know what you think. You may not agree with me, but I would be curious to know what you think, or maybe you have a question. So I always have to leave a little footnote, though. Of course, I practice in Tennessee, so I am using a Tennessee lawyer's brain to examine these issues, but they may not be in Tennessee. People make bad decisions all over the place, right? So the first one, I've seen this happen before. This is a child who is now taking care of their father after their mother passed away. So mom passed away, and father is now 75 years old, which is not really elderly, but it's older, of course. And so the child says through her childhood that her dad was not especially close to her. They were emotionally distant. He was focused on his career, working, and hobbies rather than her or her mom. He was very successful professionally, wrote books, and always had a strong sense of his own self-importance. Well, she says after Mama died, she moved in when her mom got sick, and now her father is still at the house. She's still in the house, and he's become unable to do much. You know, the death of a partner really does take a significant impact for obvious reasons, right? But, you know, if you become reliant on somebody, you're married 50 years, that is a serious life change. And I often see people coming in who have never balanced the books, never done any planning. You know, the other spouse handled that. And that is a tough transition. But sitting down with someone like me always helps. So she is asking about her father. Is, I guess, come up with some grandiose kind of ideas, plans. She doesn't say what those are, but she's concerned because he's coming up with things that are out here, right? Well, I think it's okay to dream, right? It's okay to dream. Maybe that's out of the trauma. Maybe he wanted, to think about something else more exciting. Maybe he feels like his best years are behind him. You know, all these things can lead to daydreaming or dreaming or talking about things you think are more interesting than what you're doing now. But also it can be a sign, of course, of diminished capacity. If someone is thinking they're somewhere else or doing something else or doesn't have a real connection with reality, that may be something that you definitely want to talk to their primary care physician about, and maybe look at whether some planning needs to be done if there's a diminished capacity issue. So probably not what she was looking for in that response, but that's kind of what I think about that. Here's, one where we talk about you have to get your planning done, right? Timing. Well, this person waited until they were in hospice. They talked millions of times about getting their documents in order, but never got around to it. And now she's not capable of signing any of them. Ouch, right? That is an unfortunate situation. But I can tell you, I just had a situation like this last week. Someone called me. It was a wife who called me, and her husband has been ill and is now in hospice care. And he doesn't have any estate planning, and he has separate assets. And that doesn't necessarily mean that 100% would go to her. So she's concerned, especially since it's a blended family. So she's got stepchildren and so forth. These are the real things that happen when you don't plan and you don't do it in a timely manner. But, yes, if you've got somebody in a hospice bed, that is maybe too late to do any planning. You need to have basic requisite capacity to make these documents, which means you need to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're giving away, and who you're giving it to is essentially, in layman's terms, what that capacity requires. So, unfortunate, but do see this quite often. So, all right, I got a doozy coming up, but before we get to this doozy, I'm just going to take a quick break. Want to remind you again, check out my book, Boomer Time Blueprint. It has all kinds of suggestions for you, and I think really can be an effective tool in giving you an idea of why you need to plan, what goes into that planning, and things you may not have thought about. It's on Amazon. Welcome back to Boomer Time. Nancy Cogar here. We are talking about different kinds of scenarios that can come up. Some of them strange, some of them complex, some of them sad, but they do come up, and they all speak to the reason why you need to plan. Bottom line, right? It's always the bottom line. Okay, well, we found some doozies, as I said. Here's one. It's from another daughter. Mom. She's writing about Mom, who is 57, so not necessarily, again, from my perspective, old, right? And she lives in New England. Mom is living in a tow-behind RV on a friend's front yard with electric hookups. A situation that was supposed to be temporary, and now it's been going on for longer than 3 years. Mom says she lives in the RV because she could never rent a real place because she has 25 cats. She does take care of the cats, and says keeps the RV clean, but the issue is having 25 cats that Mom can't find traditional housing, or normal housing, as her daughter calls it. She's looking to, Mom says now she's looking to buy some rural land. She needs someone to sign the financing with her. That may be a challenge, but she's looking at some land that doesn't have a well, doesn't have septic, doesn't have electricity, so it's unimproved, and only has a shed on the property. Her plan would be to live in the RV, use the generator for electric, fill a water tank with her truck, dump black water, dirty water, septic water at a transfer station using a trailer, and rely on people she knows for help. That does not sound like a good plan to me. Now, with the caveat that, I know some people don't have a lot of money to work with, and sometimes you have to, do what you need to afford what you can afford. But a couple things here, just from a standpoint of long-term care, living, having in a situation where you're stable and able to take care of yourself. This one has red flags all over it, right? So an RV is essentially a vehicle, right? A car with a door that you can live in, and it is not the same as being in a house. I can't imagine being in an RV with 25 cats. I know she says that Mom takes care of the cats, but forget it. I wouldn't be there. I've been in situations where, people have had multiple animals, and there's usually animal mess that I've seen in the houses. Not saying that's the case here, but a lot of times that speaks to a mental decline, really, honestly. Maybe something else going on, a mental need decline. It could be a warning sign. Most of the time, to be honest with you, if I see somebody like that, it's not long before the court has some petition where they're wanting to clear out the house and she's a danger to herself and the neighborhood is clamoring about the 25 cats and the house is a disaster area. But this is an RV. Buying rural land. Well, you got to think about when you're older, where are you in relation to other things, right? We're not getting any younger, but if she wants to live out in an area where there's not much, doesn't sound like the land is improved. She's leaving herself in the middle of a place where there's no support, really, right? Why would you do that? That just does not make sense. I don't know the background here, but it may be that mom's needing some intervention and maybe daughter is just trying to look at the options that are available to her. It's tough stuff, though. I mean, I see it all the time. So 25 cats never leads to anything good. You may not agree with me, but most of the time the cats are going to the shelter after the lady has some kind of intervention. So then you're going to find a home for the 25 cats. Timeshares. Oh, timeshares. I got to tell you, most of the time when I have timeshares that are involved, people are trying to figure out how to get rid of them, right? Especially if someone dies and it's a timeshare that is part of an estate. Overall, people don't want timeshares. They're expensive. They get into them, and not saying anything about any companies, but, they may not maintain the properties. You don't have a great week that you pick, for your timeshare. There's all kinds of issues, but like I said, most people are trying to get rid of them, and they are very hard to get rid of. So this lady says that her mom is now up to 3 timeshares. She keeps signing agreements for timeshares. And they're all in the same building. She can stay there only 3 weeks out of the year, 1 week each, right? She is afraid of inheriting these, right? And wants her mom to get rid of them. Well, again, if you are competent, you can make bad decisions all you want all day, right? There's repercussions to that, but you have a right to do that. I would say that probably continuing to buy timeshares is not a great idea. I don't know where these timeshares are, but it is something that gets passed on to your estate. And there have been lawsuits and there have been cases where people have complained about the unreasonable fees that these timeshares charge for maintenance and just for being a part of the timeshare. So it can get really burdensome. I'll give you one example of something. I had a guy that had an insolvent estate and this timeshare was left. And he said, Nancy, I need to get rid of this timeshare. What should I do? Well, I ended up drafting a deed and conveying it back to the timeshare company, which was a big company, and said, nobody wants it. The estate is insolvent and no one can afford it. So here's your interest back. I never heard anything. It's been several years. So I guess they said, okie dokie, but creative resolution, I guess. But they are, just bottom line, they are hard to get rid of. And most people are trying to do that, not get more. There's something I see often, and we've talked about it before, but somebody that's just so stubborn and they won't make documents. They keep delaying. They say they don't need it. You do need it, by the way. But this guy's 88 years old. He has an advanced care directive, which is an end-of-life directive. And he's got a DNR. He doesn't have a will, doesn't have power of attorney, nothing. She says he's doing pretty well. He's 88 years old, but That's the kind of thing where something can come up pretty quickly. Um, you know, it may come up before then. But if you don't have somebody with the authority to make decisions for you, you can really run into a mess. You need to have someone available to pay your bills. I mean, just because you go in the hospital doesn't mean the mortgage company's not going to expect a payment. Same thing with your vehicle. He does have a mortgage that still has $50,000 on it. And, this is what we're talking about. Why would someone be so headstrong about not making these documents? I think it's a misunderstanding sometimes that they don't understand what the documents are supposed to do, or they're scared of independence, something like that. But the old book here can really clarify some of the things about why you need these documents and when you need them and what they're supposed to do. Because you can really, just even for the sake of creating some real heartache and expense for your family, you can really do that by not doing what you're supposed to as far as estate planning, because it can lead to a court proceeding where they take your rights away. And that is a very often complicated evidentiary process that involves multiple lawyers and costs a lot of money. And it's never fun. So do the right thing and put people you trust and know can do the job in place. That's what I say to that person, right? Same person, another person saying, Mom is in hospice care. She hadn't made documents. She can't make them now. Well, you know what happens when you don't have things in place and you die? That means you are, by default, you've decided not to make any decisions about what you want to happen to your estate. Why would you do that, right? State steps in because that's the fallback and decides who gets what and how much. Talk about a potential mess. Don't do that to your family, but if you don't have an enforceable will, that's exactly what will happen. And you're going to expose your estate to potential creditors. It creates a big fat mess. I've had people come to me oftentimes saying they don't want what their parents left for them. That's not a good legacy, is it? But that's what they're talking about. So I would say get it done, and get it done before you can't do it. I am going to just take a quick break here, but when we come back, I want to talk about a couple things, including something just happened recently that I'm involved with that will protect the innocent, but I want to talk about the issue because I think it's important. So be right back. Hey there, welcome back. I'm here, Nancy Cogar, and this is Boomer Time. I've met some of you recently, and you've told me that you are religious Boomer Time watchers, and I thank you for that. That is exactly why I created the podcast, because I want you to be more informed. I want you to be ready for these issues, and I want to build a community. Caregiving and aging can be isolating. I do not want that for you. So that is the reason I'm here. So I wanted to talk about two other scenarios, cases that have come up recently. I do estate administration in addition to estate planning. So that means probate or trust administration. And I had two circumstances come up recently in probate that I thought were worth mentioning. So the first one involves a mother, blended family. She had just recently married her husband, so they hadn't been married that long. And she had two sons, adult sons from two prior marriages. So she died unexpectedly and did not have a will. So, of course, as I mentioned earlier, that means that the state law controls. That means you don't get to decide who gets what, how much, and what portion or what property. She gave that up, right? She gave it up when she decided not to make the decision. And I don't mean that to be callous. I just mean, every day we've got decisions to make, and she just didn't make the decision. So the state law controls. Well, that's unfortunate for the family that she left behind because she had a house, she had some other property, and apparently she had expressed that she wanted one of her sons to have the house. Can't do that anymore because she didn't have a will. If she had a will and she wanted to give the one son the house, she could have done that. She could have done it. But now it's too late. The husband wanted to offer the house anyway to the son at a discounted rate. Can't do that either because it has to be fair market value. You see the things you miss out on when you don't plan? It's just not making a decision is making a decision. So the saving grace here is that it took some doing, but we got all the beneficiaries to agree, and we have proposed a settlement which will allow the sale of the house and bring some property in. But it wasn't easy, and the court still needs to approve it. So will the court approve it? Probably, but maybe not. And much better way to go about that would have been to have something in place. It doesn't take that long. Get it done. She would have protected the family, and she would have protected her choice. So it's created a lot of stress and grief and additional expense as well. So I hope it works out. We'll be glad to fill you in on the details once we get there. Another story for you that involves a probate. Also a probate that there was no will. This was Grandpa. And there were multiple wives and multiple family members from different mothers and a whole host of issues that usually come with families, as you can imagine. So we tackled that one. This one, we wanted to sell some property, which we had to sell it for fair market value, right? And the proceeds would come into the estate. So there wasn't anybody that wanted the property per se in the estate. So we had that simplification. But here's the problem. There was a lien on the property, a secured lien, a debt that apparently Grandpa took out in 2010. But nobody knew anything about the debt. No one knew anything about what was due, if anything. And we couldn't find any of the banks that were involved didn't claim the debt as theirs. I tell you what, this created such a mess because we couldn't sell the property because we don't know who the money's owed to, but there is a security interest on the real estate. Even the title company couldn't figure it out. So yours truly spent a lot of time on this one, but it ended up that it was a settlement with FHA and Housing and Urban Development that was done more than 15 years ago. And there was a big debt that was still due. So guess what? We had to pay it in order to get the property sold. Painful stuff. Don't do that to your family. This created a lot of stress and rendered a lot of my time, which is an expense of the estate. So I would rather go to the beneficiaries, but, attorneys get paid for what they do and got it resolved. But just two more examples of things that, I really think speak to the importance of having a plan in place, even if it's a simple plan, right? Right. So I appreciate you being with me here today. I hope you learned something from some of these scenarios that I've mentioned. I always do. I think it's important that we learn from each other's journeys. I don't have all the answers. That's what they call law of practice, right? You can find the answers. Every circumstance is a little bit different. That's why you need a personal plan. You're not the same as your neighbor, and you're not the same as the people that I mentioned today. So do something about it and really get moving on having a plan in place. You can contact me here and make an appointment for a strategy session if you're in my area. You can order my book, which is available on Amazon, and it is filled with all kinds of good information no matter where you are. The website has lots of resources on it too. You know how I love resources. Continue to watch Boomer Time, and remember to vote for me for Best of Best Local Podcast. Boomer Time is up for that nomination, and I'm excited, hopefully, to celebrate that with you in just a little bit. So I will see you next time, but thanks for watching Boomer Time.